Everyone who's supposed to be here, but yeah, I have written a few things. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes.
The mic is fine? Okay. Well, yeah, I'm her son, Mustafa. I'm her firstborn, her only son, and you know, I've written a few pages, so thank you for being here and listening. I'm sure that we can all agree that childbirth may be one of women's most formidable process. Now imagine that childbirth with a 10-pound, 10-ounce son. And go a step further now and imagine that same birth amidst the peak of a Russian invasion of Afghanistan, one of the most pernicious wars of history. Try to fathom that same birthing without the safety and comfort of a hospital, nursing staff, or amenities conducive to a smooth delivery. Just a husband, a father, a midwife named Rosemary, and from what I'm told, a waterbed. Needless to say, my life had already began with the odds already stacked against me, so my mother defied the odds. Little did that 10-pound son know that a sequence of odds would be defied for him throughout his life. Little did that 10-pound son know that a sequence of odds would be defied for him throughout his life by his one and only mother. Those who know can attest to the fact that leaving Afghanistan in 1980 was almost an impossible feat. So a mother and child defied those odds as well, leaving a war-torn country alone, with the father had to defy his own odds to join us a few months later. As an 18-month-old toddler with limited memory and cognition, I wouldn't even be able to grasp such a dire scenario. And 34 years later, I still try to imagine what it must have been like for a 26-year-old woman to travel halfway across the world with a baby in tow, limited English, money, and little to no family support at all. My mom in Los Angeles in 1980, awaiting for a husband whose own survival and whereabouts were in question. My mother did whatever it took to ensure my survival and not see the grim fate so many thousands of mothers and children saw in Kabul. This is only one chapter of many in which my mother's resiliency affected my life. My mother and father raised me as a Muslim, and they also raised me as an Afghan. To this day, I am certain my first words were in Pashto. I learned to speak two languages, Pashto and English, before I even knew how to ride a bike. My parents were devout Muslims and transitioned me slowly and gradually into the teachings, verses, and disciplines of Islam. I actually learned all my prayers and du'as right here in this mosque throughout my adolescence. The irony is a bit bitter that I am standing in the same mosque 2 decades later giving a eulogy on my mother. But in hindsight, I must say that it was a bit rough for me to assimilate Los Angeles as a young Muslim Afghan kid. Just a young, naive refugee boy trying to fit in with California culture. We grew up fairly poor, but I can never remember a day in my life that I went hungry. My mother never spoiled me, but she would reward me with toys and gifts that she saw fit and affordable. I can still remember her buying me my first pink skateboard from Fedco for my birthday. A few months later, I got a Nintendo game system from the same Fedco. But on the same note, she denied me several toys as well, and my public displays of crying, begging, and pouting had little to no effect on her. My mother was sometimes a stern woman, and we need be a disciplinarian. She would not hesitate to discipline me publicly or privately if I was acting up. In hindsight, I actually am happy that she kicked my butt a few times, because I needed it. Children are spoiled today and act out in many ways and commit crimes that exceed their mental capacities. We see it in the news all the time. I come from an era before child protection services and bogus child abuse claims. Furthermore, a 35-year-old Afghan woman with kids were exempt from such children's rights. If you act up with an Afghan mom or dad, you get punished. And if you were with your Afghan relatives, you're subject to their spankings as well. But I digress. Point blank, my mother always did everything for us within the realm of human capacity. And on a few rare occasions, extraordinary things as well. I look around and I see everyone who's supposed to be here. And a few people who haven't been able to make it because of such short notice or circumstances in their individual life. I do not fault those who didn't make it one bit. The celebration of life is not a popularity contest for my mother's honor and name. There's no guest list at the door, and I'm not counting people. I simply tell family in other countries and states to simply do a prayer in her name at a mosque. And if you're not Muslim, then simply keep my mother in your thoughts, and that should suffice with me and hopefully Allah. I want my mother's brothers and sisters who are not aware that the extent of my mother's ailments went back a few years. She has fought off cancer before, as well as a few other internal issues. If she did not inform you of her medical problems, it's because she is very strong, proud, and discreet about her physical life. Even in the hospital 2 months ago, when she was in her deathbed, she refused to let us contact her family because she could not bear to see their reactions or pity. Despite my mother's pride, we had to involve her family. And calling Uncle Nasser and Aunt Majana was the best thing we ever did. My mother's bedside went from 3 people to 30 in 1 week. The strength of her family came through with overwhelming response. I always tell people you don't know who your friends are until your wedding and your funeral. I come from a family of 5, and I know my sisters always come through for me in time of need, but seeing 13 siblings come together in unison to my mother's aid was absolutely amazing. They divided their time amongst themselves so that my mother was not alone for even 1 second. I have no words to describe the love and devotion they have given my mom in her last month. Me and my aunts have an inside joke about who was my favorite aunt, who was my second favorite aunt, and third, etc., etc. After witnessing their actions this last month, they are truly equal. All of them are pieces of my mother. For those who don't know who my mother's sisters are and her brothers, stay and talk to people here. Talk to everyone. I guarantee you will be able to discern who my mother's siblings are in 5 minutes after you talk to them. My mother doesn't come from a family. She comes from a legacy. She comes from a father who raised and reared 19 children, to include the 5 who died at an early age. She comes from a name that ascends through Afghan history and time. A name that will pop up more than 40 people on a Facebook search. My mother can be described with a lot of words. I have chosen such words as strong, proud, stern, outspoken, opinionated, and traditional. My mother is not remembered today as an alam, or an Afghan, or Muslim, or an interfaith advocate. First and foremost, she was a human being before anything. She was first a daughter, a sister, wife, and by the grace of Allah, a mother. She may have not conformed to any religious boundaries, but she was a God-fearing woman. She was respectful of all faiths and beliefs. She befriended people of all walks of life. And I know this because I know most of them. In the end, my mother was a spiritual person, finding her peace and harmony under her own accord. She found solace in her interfaith group of Culver City, and her social and spiritual life soared. She was an active member and leader in something she believed in. And for the most part, that's what all humans are prone to doing, finding something to believe in. I couldn't possibly summarize my mom's life in a few words and pages. That is an injustice. But I can say this. My mom did things for me since the day I was born. was born. And she never stopped doing things for me all the way until 7 days ago. I learned a lot from her human strength and her ability to fight off a virulent evil affliction that ate her body. The RN nurse, Jim, who treated my mom to the last moments, was astounded by my mom's internal strength. The last thing I remember him saying as he took my mom's vital signs was, "She's a fighter." He said, "Your mom is a fighter." And I thought to myself, you have no idea.
Sometimes parents think they're successful because they have children who make a lot of money, or they do whatever their parents and their family says, or because their children become copies of them. But the most successful parents are the ones who raise children to think and decide for themselves, who are able to consider not only their traditions, but what is important to them at the time. The most successful parents are the ones who raise children who define themselves independently, not just as someone's daughter or someone's wife or someone's employee. I think that's the lesson that my mom tried to teach everyone that she met. My mom was a leader who taught by example. She was relentless in her improvement of herself and the world. She made decisions for herself, not based on what others wanted. If you spent any time with her, you knew she was not afraid to ask why. Or she wasn't afraid to take a different point of view just for the sake of learning. My mom touched many lives in her 60 years, whether they were a family member, a close friend, or you might know her through someone else. Everyone is here because of her today. Her memory will live on in the friendships she made in the cancer support community, the progress she made with the Interfaith Alliance, in the fun and excitement of her weekly Zumba classes, and through her peaceful and beautiful gardens she tended at her home. But mostly, her legacy lives on in her family. And if you never met my mom, her family can show you who she was. If you knew her through her husband, my dad, then you knew her as a beautiful, strong woman, no less than perfect, and just a little bit stubborn. You knew her as someone who always did her own research instead of believing what salespeople told her. You knew she was someone who wouldn't back down, especially in difficult times. If you knew her through her son, my brother, you knew her as someone who had a bottomless well of faith and tough love, and someone who never gives up. You knew her as someone whose intuition can disregard all the external circumstances and treasure a person for who they really are. If you happen to know her through me, you would know that she's a therapist who loves to dance. Someone assertive, confident, and who held everyone to standards as high as her own. If you know her through her other daughter, my little sister, you know her as stylish, rebellious, joyful, and as someone who doesn't take BS from anybody. My family and I all hear her voice every day, and we all know what would mommy do. But we also know that the choice is our own, and that above all, she worked hard to make sure that we don't do anything out of obligation, but out of love. That's how I know that she raised a strong family, because we do things because we want to, not because we have to. My mom loved flowers, the color pink, the sound of music, and she loved Lucy. She loved learning, trying on jewelry, and she loved getting a good bargain, especially on clothes. She loved a good joke. She hated bad ones. She loved going for long walks in her neighborhood and debating topics over the dinner table and the breakfast table and the lunch table. Once, recently, while she was in the hospital, her nurses were treating her and told her to help her relax by thinking of her happy place. She described her happy place as her husband and children sitting around her dining table. 4 chairs for 5 people, because we never bought a 5th chair. So we always had to bring an extra one. The chairs we've had, we've had them for like 35 years. And everyone had their own different colored dinner feel calm and at peace with her passing, although I'm sure some days will be harder than others. But it helps that I see her in all the people around me that love and admire her. It helps that I see her in myself and my brother and my sister. And it helps that she got to experience that happy place that we all got to be around her before she passed away. I think she was waiting for that, to see that we would all be together, healthy and happy, before she was ready to leave us. Now I'm going to introduce my dad, Dr. Zaman Stanizai.
Mics were not made for our panel. And since Nadia is not going to be talking, I think I'm going to take her 25 minutes to Allah Jamil wa yuhibbu Jamal. Her love shines on my heart before I open my eyes to the earliest awakened moment of consciousness every morning. She was so aptly named Jahan, shining over the world. That sun never sets on this heart-rent night. Her love fills every moment of my life in thought and being, and in the immersion of its presence. Her voice echoes in my zikr, the constant conscious remembrance of the divine. In Islamic spirituality, just as for the diotima in the Platonic sense, the most genuine use of love of another is to direct the mind to the love of the Supreme Consciousness through the beauty that inspires the mind and the soul. Thus, love, if correctly understood, is the highest form of worship, not of another, but the love of God through another who can mirror the intensity of the deepest emotions humans can express. The very essence of our being is love, as we have been created out of His desire to be loved. For He loved to be known out of love and not obligation. It is in the human heart that He created the most sacred sanctuary, the sacred temple of love, where God's glory is reflected in perpetual emanation of luminosity that the mystics call Tajalliyat al-Mashai, or often referred to as Zaman. It wasn't for naught that 1/3 of God's attributes, Sifat al-Jamali, are the attributes of beauty. And beauty is the integral flip side of love. It was the absence and negligence of this aspect of faith that the Prophet was most concerned about, as his favorite and most repeated prayer was, Subhanaka ma arafnaka. O God, we have not been able to know you as you deserve to be known. None of the attributes of God we humans have on loan are ours. Thus, any beauty you see must of necessity be the beauty of God. I saw the reflection, such a reflection of the divine beauty, in the form and face of Jahan 40 years ago. Little I knew that there was much more depth, intensity, and commitment to her outer beauty. My description of her is not to be taken lightly. She is wife and life and mother, voice of bold reasoning and daring conviction, the defender of blunt honesty and no-nonsense truth-telling, the paragon of perfection and the epitome of charm and elegance. Those who knew her firsthand and directly would attest to that. First I loved her, but soon I left her, as I live her now. She took my breath away at first sight and hasn't given it back. Beyond the pretense of this act of denial, your presence defies the past tense in my language, as in the heart of every unborn moment, your thought, your being, your presence and your love permeates the fiber of my expectations. I live you, I love you forever. بسا تاریک گردیده جهان بی جهان من ز خود انکار باید کرد زمان بی زمان من قضا را قسمت و تقدیر که قدر عمر می کاهد نقاب بر دیده گسترده از آن اشک روان من او را اسم زیاد بود لیک هیچ مسمایی را کفایت توصیف جوهر انسانی او نبود. جهان، گلاله جان، گلی جان، گلی خانم، پس من هر روز جهان تاب عالم تابم را به یک نام خاص صدا می کردم. حتی به عبارات و کلمات محبت آمیز و خیال برانگیز که معمول عام نیست او را طلب می کردم و از او طلب می کردم و او می دانست خود مخاطب است. این شیوهی بود که ما هر روز زندگی خود را به گونه دیگری رنگ می کردیم. پس لازم است بدانیم که ذکر هر جهان مفهوم دیگری را می رساند و مفهوم دیگری را می پوشاند. مرا جهان دیگر است و تو را جهان دیگر، راز اندیشه نگنجد اندر بیان دیگر. هرچی گویم نتوانم ز معنی برگویم، شرح معنی کند ایجاب صد زبان دیگر. سال پیش روز خوشراه بود، والنتاینز دی. دوستان از من تقاضا کردند شعری به این مناسبت بسرایم. وقتی از جهان دعوت کردم به کنایه گفت میخوایی من بین هزار بنشینم تا تو از عشق به دیگران سخن پردازی کنی و شاعر نمایی؟ بعد از اصرار قبول کرد با من به مجلس مشاوره بیاید. پس بر من بود تا اثبات کنم برای من او عشق یگانه است و این شعر را تنها برای او می سرایم. وجه الهام خود را دعای گزیدم که مسلمانان هر روز دست به دربار پروردگار بلند کرده می گویند ربنا آتنا فی الدنیا حسنه و فی الاخرة حسنه. این دعا را حضرت حافظ با این تعدیل صوفیانه بیان می کند. وصال او ز عمر جاودان به، خداوندا مرا آن ده که آن ده. من هم به همین بیت حافظ تضمین کردم تا جهانم را قناعت هم یگانه عشق من اوست و عنوان شعرم جهان است. وصال او ز عمر جاودان به، خداوندا مرا آن ده که آن به. ز رنگ روی او هر آستان به، و هر عالم که او باشد امان به. ز نیکویی و لطف بیکرانش، و زحمت هر چی باید او از آن به. ز هر حادث که رنج و محنت آرد، غبار خاطرش اندر امان به. ز شوقش پیرهن بر نای جانم، همین حالم ز عمر جاودان به. گل رویش بیاراید چمن را، نشستن پیش او در گلستان به. بسان ژاله خسبیده در گل، در شهوار او خوش در دهان ده. مرا از مژه اش یک نقطه حاصل، درون سینه ام داغش نهان ده. برد دل حسرت تیر نگاهش، رواق جفت ابرویش همان به. دو چشمش 100,000 مظهر و چشمم، دل برده چنین دلبر چنان به. تصور غافل از تصویر او نیست، خیال چهرهش اندر روان به. زمانا رشک چشم خسروانی، جهانت خوشتر از هر دو جهان. چه پتلینده ترومی تمام جهان سی، چه پتلینده ترومی تمام جهان سیز، ملول از رمستاقم که خزان سی. تا ده هر لحظه زرکه حس ساعتم، تو دیاد ما پزرکه جاودان سی. ژوند بدن په کالبد او د هیکل په قالب کې نشي تعریفولی. انسان ماهیتا د خدای روح دی، د تن په قالب کې او د خدای امر دی. د قرآن په استناد چې وایي کل روح من امر ربی، نو ځکه د ژوند اصلي معنا د تسلسل دوام دی. خو په دغه تسلسل کې موږ له پړاوونو نه تېرېږو، څو د خدای په وحدانیت کې داسې مدغم شو چې ځان رانه ورک شي او ځان مو ورک شي. د دغه لارې مزل د خوب او رویا پړاوونه وي. په دغه مزل کې زه د شعر په ژبه د عبادت په رسم د ګلې د سترګو طواف کوم. زه ستا د خیال د لارې ملوم، زما مسیر نه و لکه څپه یو سر غورځنګ وم، خو بهیر نه و. قدم هسې ستا په لارې بې پروا کېښوده، پکې مجال د هېڅ تبدیل او د تأخیر نه و. شم د رندان و میخانې تناببره ورپیش، مریدان ناست و شاوخوا پکې یو پیر نه و. شوی نته خوږ ستا د نامه د ترنم انګازې، په زړه مې لږ شوی په ژبه مې تقریر نه و. ستا بېلتانه سره مې شپه سوه د خلوت پر پالنګ، ستا بېلتانه سره مې شپه سوه د خلوت پر پالنګ. سکوت کې نغښتې اندېښنې وې، درد او ویر نه و. د خوب څپو کې ستا لقا لږ رات څرګنده شوله عقل مې بایلود نور سنجش او هیڅ تدبیر نه و ویشتلی زړه به مې لا هسې ستا په غم کې و پروت ویشتلی زړه به مې لا هسې ستا په غم کې و پروت که د ناز کتل بڼو لاندې په ځیر نه و ومې نیوله ستا لمن د تمنا په لاسو په التماس کې مې حجو ریا تصویر نه و خوښ زنګېدم ستا د مشکینو زلفو ټال کې هسې د لونګین په څېر د بل عطر او عبیر نه و چې زما په غاړه ستا د زلفو سلسلې شوې جوړې ما ته دا ستا له حلقې پرته بل زنځیر چې د سرکو شونډو پیاله دې راته وړاندې کړله زما بې درمانه رنځ ته بل دارو اکسیر نه و د سترګو رپ کې راوچت شم ستا د خیال له خوبه د سترګو رپ کې راوچت شم ستا د خیال له خوبه خو د رویا د رنګ او راز مې څه تعبیر نه و ویښ په حسرت کې مې ژر پټې کړلې سترګې خو حیف د رجعت هڅو کې مې پاته کوم تاثیر نه و سترګو مې ستا د مخ قبلې ته ډېر په هیله کتل ځکه غیبت کې د جادو او کوم تصویر نه و له تصور نه مې څېره ستا د سپین مخ وغوښته له تصور نه مې څېره ستا د سپین مخ وغوښته خو ورسره ستا د ښایست ورسره ستا د ښایست ښکلی تصویر نه و د زړه کعبه کې مې تور داغ ستا د هجران ښکلا و چې په طواف کې اسباب مور د تکفیر نه و په سجود پرېوتلم زه ستا د ابرو پر محراب د مخ مانځل د شو ثواب پکې تقصیر نه و قسم د لاسه د وژله وی د ورځو په تیغ نور به حاجت ما د وژنې د تفسیر نه و د ستانزي قلم شو ځکه د دې راز ویندو د ستانزي قلم شو ځکه د دې راز ویندو د عشق داستان ته یې بل کاتب د تحقیق نه و
To invite Dr. Maher Hatun. I know other people have approached to say something, so I think after we have some of the speakers, we'll open it up for other people who also want to share something.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله على كل حال. We thank and we praise Allah at every time, the hard time and the easy time alike, because we follow the essence that to God we belong and to God we shall return. And definitely we felt the presence of Jahan as a gift to life and to this center. And as we were so grateful for having her we cannot break down for losing her, because actually we did not lose her. She just moved to a higher realm of mercy of God and of compassion. I'm sure that all the speakers covered important aspects, and probably my wife, when she comes here, will cover another aspect that she probably experienced more than me. But if I can describe Jahan very briefly, number one, she is a woman with presence. She cannot be pushed aside or ignored. She is a reality there. You might agree with what she says, or you might not. But in both cases, she will get your attention and your respect. And this is such a rare and great quality. Then the other aspect that I learned is her industriousness, her tenacity, her determination. Never intimidated, never felt that there is no hope. She was always working at something, beginning by herself. This dear woman built herself brick by brick until she became the very important qualified figure that all of us knew. The third quality is her unlimited belief in justice and freedom, without a shade of intimidation. She was not the crazy rebellion. She was the pleasant rebellion, which makes the rebellion more effective and more constructive. I personally, for one, will miss her a lot. I prayed sincerely for her and for Zaman and for the kids, whom we always knew as the kids. No matter where you go, you are the kids. And we pray for you, we are here for you at any time. And I know that there is a sense of loneliness, but this is why our big family here, in our big family home here, plays a role. May Allah bless our soul and give you patience and perseverance. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, of course. Can I go anywhere without her?
She would like to come out and say a few words. Oh, she's good.
Yes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May the peace and blessing of God be upon all of you. Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. I had the honor of knowing Dr. Jahan Stanizai for almost 30 years. I always considered her as my daughter or my youngest sister. She has impressed me immensely with her strength, her power, her determination, and her continuous desire to learn and to improve herself. coming from a culture where I came from, where most women have not been given a status, she has managed to prove herself and to prove her personality and to learn as high as getting a doctoral degree and being a marriage counselor, and she has that quest for knowledge, whether it be Islamic knowledge, any knowledge. She was the person that I always really admired as a strong personality. And I believe she has accomplished what she wanted to accomplish in achieving her goals and achieving a high education and being very active, not only in the Muslim community, at the interfaith community, where she stressed Islam as she understood it in a positive way. And I will always really admire her, and I pray that God may put her in the highest level of paradise, inshallah. Give her family the patience and perseverance to cope with the loss. And it's not only the loss of her family, it's the loss of all our community, the loss of the Islamic Center and the loss of the interfaith community. May God bless her soul. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Gibord if she would like to say a few words.
Zaman, Safa, Sarah, Nadia, mother of Jahan, and sisters and other family members. This is a joyous day, and it's also a very difficult day. Much will be said in the remaining days and today of Jahan's tenacity, her wry sense of humor, her daring conviction, or saying it like it is. But I do want to address another aspect of her. It is said in the book of Psalms, in the First Testament of the Holy Bible, that God is the giver of all gifts. Jahan was given to us as a gift, and we celebrate that gift today. She also gave us another gift. I had the privilege of visiting with her, I think it was July the 7th, in the hospital. She had already been there for some time. And the keeper at the gate, Sarah, was enormously gracious and generous, as was the whole family, in sharing Jahan with all of us. I have to tell you that I got a new insight into what it means to be family. Zaman was there every night, with rare exception, talking with her, sharing thoughts deep into the night, as were her children and other members of the family. A sister from Orange County was bringing food every day all the way from Orange County. What struck me about Jahan as she was lying there, and already the cancer was working seriously against her, was her resolve, was her deep spirituality, was her sense of her deep faithfulness. While she never lost hope, ever, even so much so that she got herself well enough to be able to go home and to start her chemotherapy, a half dosage of it. At the root of it all was her faithfulness in Allah, that ultimately she would submit to the will of Allah and to let go. And so what I want to say to you is that in living, she gave us a model. And in dying, she gave us a model of how to do that with grace and deep faithfulness. The giving of the gift continues. Look at all of us here today. People from the Abrahamic tradition, our sister Simran Khalsa, we are here today to thank the family for having shared her with us. And we want to say to the family, as you were there for Jahan, we are now here for you. Grieving and sorrow take many forms. For many days you will be fine, and then there will be a scent, there will be a smell, there will be a song on the radio that will remind you of your beloved. Some days will be harder than others, and on those hard days, I look around this room, and there are any number of people to whom you will be able to call, and to whom will be able to say, I just need to talk. Will you just listen? And this community will say to you, yes, we will.
Is Reverend Stephen Fitz here? Hi, Stephen.
Family, friends. I've known Jahan maybe 5 or 6 years. I think I met her overseas in Faith. And we were working on a peace pledge. We were authoring it. And she was like right on the pulse of what it means to be a person of God and a person of peace. There was no differentiation. It was alive and it was well in Jahan. And she led that effort. She pushed us. And she was unrelenting until we got it done. And then Jahan became involved in many aspects of interfaith work that I was involved with. But I want to, so many people have spoke about the attributes of her character. I want to relate to you a little story. She would come to my home on Sunday mornings. I have a group that meets at my home, my garden. And she was always, when Jahan came in and sat down in the circle, you knew that the conversation was going to be great. Intense, vibrant, and full of lots of exchange of energy. Well, one day when we were in my garden, it happens that next door there's a parrot. The neighbor has a parrot. And the parrot is very vocal. Like, ah, ah, like that. But it also talks like, you can almost hear this language that the bird speaks. So one day while we were in the garden, we were having an intense interaction, as was usual when Jahan was part of the circle. And the parrot began squawking. And it was as if, and Jahan was talking. The parrot was squawking. And all of a sudden, Jahan just said, she just lifted up her head and began to laugh. She just began to laugh. And now, I've known her as a fairly serious person. But this time, she just was laughing hysterically. Something in the parrot kind of spoke into her heart. And she just said, there's the truth. All our words, all our deeds, everything, but there in the sound of the parrot. And she just laughed. We all just The whole rest of the program was just laughing. We just laughed with John. This morning, I was there in my garden before anyone arrived. And I was sitting there by myself. And at the end of the driveway, as where people come in, there's a garden gate. And I left it a little bit ajar. And the wind blew it open. And I thought, it's Jahan. She's coming today. And then I saw her come across the garden and take her seat. Joy sat in the same place, like Jahan's place. And then the parrot began to talk. And I said, here she is. Here she is. This beautiful, vibrant spirit, this deep spiritual soul, this rich, rich personality. There was no doubt when you were with Jahan that you were with a person of substance, a person of integrity, and a person who always drove towards the truth. And sometimes she might have pushed buttons. That was part of what she was. She was a button pusher, but she never was pushing buttons to be mean or to be aggravating anybody. She was pushing buttons to go to the heart of the matter, to go to the truth. And I never doubted that. And underneath that was undeniable love. This woman had tremendous, tremendous love, and I adored her for it. And the first time I saw her, I said, here's someone who understands the one. She understands the oneness beyond the walls, beyond our differences. She exemplified that. She taught it, she lived it, she preached it, and she always went for that one without fail. And whenever I hear that parrot, I will think of Jahan, and I'll know that peace, and I'll know that love that shines today here, and all of us being here, and will be carried with us wherever we go.
Is Grace Dearness here?
I'm the chair of Interfaith Communities United for Justice and Peace. Jahan was on the board of ICUJP, as we call it. I have several members of the board who are here, and I wonder if you would all just stand so everybody can see that we care deeply about Jahan, that we came here today to be present at this time. ICUJP was founded right after 9/11, when a group of religious leaders convened and called by Dr. George Regas felt that, our country was going to attack Afghanistan. And we were sorely afraid that violence was not the way to go. And so we began organizing around that concept. And our motto is religious communities must not bless war and peace, war and violence, sorry. And Dr. Hatut was one of our founding members. We have been deeply blessed by the interaction of the faith community in this effort. But when Jahan started coming to our circles, she started coming in a very quiet way. It was hard, actually, to kind of get to know her. She would come and sit in the circle, and she would listen, and we would talk afterwards, and, people would say, who is this lady? She wasn't pushing herself in any way, shape, or form. But once she got on the board, we discovered another side of her. And what we discovered was that she was really pushing for justice. When we're talking about interfaith communities united for justice and peace, she was making sure that we stood for what we said we believed. And she wouldn't let us rest. She kept prodding and making sure that when we made decisions, they were in fact just decisions. So we were very, very much cut short by her only 6 months on our board. We feel like, you know, a very big loss that she wasn't able to complete her term. And yet the whole community rallied around her in our prayers. On Friday, we meet every Friday morning at 7 in the morning, and you're all welcome to join. The one thing that I do now know that I've met the family is that there's 3 young people who can take her baton and come and join us for justice and peace. And we look forward to that day. But on Friday, we spent about 15 or 20 minutes holding hands where people reminisced about how much Jahan meant to them. And everyone knows her from different circles as well. And so we were really blessed to know your wife and your mother and your sister and your daughter. I know that it's a real big, deep loss to lose a sister and to lose a daughter and to lose the wife that you've had for 40 years and a mother. Very little can replace all of that. But her vibrant spirit does make up for some of that loss. My deep regret, and I wrote this to Sada in an email, was that I had written to Jahan early July and sent her this card, which I have here. And then on Wednesday morning, I got it back in the mail. Kaiser had just left it there and had finally returned it to me on the very day that I was finding out the news that Jahan had passed away. And so I kind of grieved because she didn't hear the words that I said, but you know, Sada was so sweet to me, and she wrote back and she said, but she knows anyway. And I have to believe that. I'll just read, because even though this was meant for Jahan, it's also meant for you. It says, Dearest Jahan, all of us at ICUJP have very much been praying for you and sending thoughts of healing and peace your way. We are grateful to Stephen Fisk for keeping us informed. This is not an easy road that you or the family are on. And we pray that the prophets and Allah will enfold you and the family in their arms. You know that's what happened. God has enfolded your mother in his arms. And she is now in the safest place she could ever be. We will miss her, but we're grateful for the time that she had with us. And we want you to know that our prayers and our thoughts are with you and our love. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite Mrs. Alfie, if you would like to share something.
I'll do it. Hi. My name is Justin. Many of you met me at the wedding, but Sarah and I got married not too long ago. Some of you know I'm meeting here. It's been I'm going to speak really briefly because probably in this room I knew Jahan the least amount of time. Sad to say. That in 2009 when I first met Sarah. And I just wanted to relay a story that I think is indicative of how I remember her. I met Sarah in a few years back in 2009. It was a time where I was very busy in my professional life, and she had asked me if I wanted to meet her family, and I was, sure. because moms really like me. You know, I have a thing with moms. I'm good with moms. So I felt really confident. And so I made my way to the Stanizai home, and the door opened, and I met Jahan for the first time, and I said, oh, no. Not because, as we all know, Jahan is an incredibly warm and open and giving person, but I knew immediately that none of my tricks were going to work. And so I was caught in this group of terror. Like, there's nothing that I'm going to say. She's going to see through everything. And so I became very scared and became very quiet. Just play defense. And so I sat in the back of the car as we went to go to lunch for the first time. And I had been not explicitly warned by Sarah, but sort of intimated that she's known for this no-nonsense truth-telling that we've been hearing so much about. And you know, I kid you not, I could still see the house in the rearview mirror. And she asked me a question, and she said, "So, are you smart?" There is no good answer. There's no good answer to that. If you say you're smart, you of course are smug and arrogant. If you don't say you're smart, well, that's a problem as well. And if you don't say anything, it sort of leads you to the default that you're not even smart enough to say you're not smart. So I really had to come up with something quick. And I said, well, as Einstein says, creativity is far more important than intelligence. It was at this point that Sarah, my future wife, turned over to me and said, it's probably not the most creative thing to steal a quote from one of the most famous people on earth. So I wanted to thank her as well for digging that ditch for me. But we had lunch, and I came to learn what everybody's been talking about thus far. Jahan was one of the first people that I told that I was going to ask Sarah to marry me. She was my greatest defender. She was my greatest supporter. She didn't bring me into the family, she dragged me into the family. I'm so incredibly grateful for that. So, you know, when I think of her and think of the things that come to mind, I love her cooking. I loved making her laugh. I did find out that we had a common sense of humor. She would even suffer my not my best jokes, but I did enjoy making her laugh. And when because of the wedding, because of the preparations and the aftermath of the wedding, I was very close to her, and I knew of her illness early on, and I'd send her email jokes. I try to scour the internet and find email jokes, and I wish I could have done more of that. I wish I had sent more, and I wish there was more time. But the last thing that I wanted to say was, for many people that don't know me, I'm an only child. I have no brothers, I have no sisters. My grandparents were dead before I was born. I never met my father. To see what has happened in the last few months has been, it's been pretty awe-inspiring to see a family come together. I've never seen this. So when my mom, when Jahan would constantly remind me that now I not only have one mother but two mothers to deal with, it wasn't a curse for me. It was always a blessing. So I want to thank the Stanizais, and goodbye, Jahan.
I didn't tell him to say yes. So I'm being told that dinner is going to be served in just a few minutes, but I did want to open up the floor if anybody else wanted to come up and share something. You are welcome to Jasmine. Right.
I'm Jasmine, and we met a few years back, and when I first got the email, I knew, I was like, I can't be reading this. This is not right. This is an illusion. This is the wrong email. And I said, okay, let me read it again. So I read it again. And then I read it to my mom, and my mom was like, oh no, she started crying right away. She was like, oh no, not Jahan. And I said, okay. And one thing that I'll never forget, I remember when I first met Jahan, I was like, when's your birthday? And she said, November 15th. I was like, oh my gosh, that's my mom's birthday. So she was such a great mom. Like anytime I had any problems, I could talk to her. And when I found out I was pregnant and I told her, she was like, oh, I'm so happy for you, Jasmine. Allah's gonna bless you, and we're here for you, the Interfaith family, we're here for you, we got you. And Nadia was so sweet, and Everett and Sarah, and I was like so happy. And so, at first I was like nervous, but she was like so calming, she was comforting. And then we were at a workshop for the Department of Mental Health. And Dr. Tom was there, and we had such a good time because she was laughing, she was making jokes the whole time. And it was so wonderful to have her there because it was kind of boring, but it was so nice to have Jahan and her jokes. So, as you remember, I said, I wanted to say something to everybody that, my daughter, she's going to be a little Jahan, and she's going to be an interfaith warrior just like Jahan, and you're going to carry her spirit with us. And my mom sends her love to everybody in the family, and it's so nice to meet everybody finally, and thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I just wanted to share a little about our interfaith community. And there are so many people here who are from the Culver City Interfaith Alliance, from the IRC, ICUJP, and other groups. And I would really love for the whole interfaith community to really stand up right now and just show your face and show your support. All these people, there were more than 40 people from the interfaith community who came together. We formed a prayer circle once we knew that John was in the hospital, and we got on the phone and we had daily prayers for a while, and a lot of people who couldn't make it to the phone calls, they prayed every day till I think today, and people are still sending their prayers. And that is the beauty of the interfaith community, that we are really, truly a huge family. We are all brothers and sisters. I was thinking and wondering about what I was going to say, and I find words are so revealing. And many people wrote and sent their love and sent their messages. We have an email going. So I've gathered a lot of the messages that I'm going to leave with you. But what I did is I took words out, and I know you're going to recognize Jahan in these words. Of course, loving mother, wife, sister, family person, daughter, beloved sister, friend, a leader, a teacher, sincere, concerned, full of wisdom, compassion, a leading light, a strong spirit, a blessed gift, so much clarity, strength, a sweet soul, precious, courageous. Somebody used the word spunk. I love that word. language and spunk. Generosity of spirit, faith, dear to so many, to all of you who are here and many who aren't here. Strong voice, inspiring, honest, kind, fearless. These are just words that were among all these emails that I gathered, and I took this, and that's, you can see her, can feel her through these words. She has inspired us and continues to inspire us by her example. Her example was tremendously valued, and she enriched all of our lives, inspiring us always onward to the truth, to the light, to the sweetness of deepest, heartfelt love. She reminded us that we are one family, and was dedicated to peace and understanding among all faiths. A true advocate for peace, justice, nonviolence, and all that is fair and right and loving in this world. We all give thanks for Jahan and the impact that she has had on so many of our lives toward the common good. She is loved, adored, and honored in our interfaith family. She has loved, and she knows we all love her, and she will be missed. Today, at the Sikh congregation, it's amazing how the universe works. And today there was a Shabbat that was sung, and I said, I have to share this Shabbat, so I will read the translation. And you can think about Jahan when I say this. One who knows him, Creator, Allah, obtains everlasting peace. God blends that one into himself. He is wealth and prosperous, and of noble birth. He is Jivan Muktiya, liberated while yet alive. The Lord God abides in his heart, in her heart. Blessed, blessed, blessed is the coming of that humble being. By his grace, the whole world is saved. This is her purpose in life. In the company of this humble servant, the Lord's name comes to mind. He, she, himself is liberated, and he liberates the universe. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum to Jahan's family, to all of her friends. I'm the co-chair for the Southern California Committee for the Parliament of the World's Religions, and I would like the people from the Parliament group to please stand for a moment and again to show how many are here in solidarity. And I also bring special greetings from Rabbi Zachary Shapiro, who is the rabbi at Temple Akiva in Culver City. He asked me to extend his warmest greetings and his deepest sympathies to the family. I met Jahan about 10 years ago. We were at an interfaith meeting planning an upcoming event which would include panelists from the different Abrahamic religions. And Jahan stood up and she said, there should be other people represented on the panel and you're not inviting them, and that's not okay. And she said that to the person who was in charge of the meeting and who was the one who would decide who would be on the panel. He was speechless. I was speechless. There was a long silence. And she didn't back down. And later, a friend of mine said, why don't you give her a call and see whether you can temper her a little? So I called her on the phone and I said, Jahan, a lot of feathers got ruffled in the room. Did you see what happened? People were bristling because you said something to the organizer in front of other people, and he was feeling very uncomfortable because it showed that he wasn't wise in his selection of panelists. And she said, well, it's true, he wasn't wise. So I said, well, could there be another way that you could maybe lobby for this without saying it that way? She said, no, he needs to know. She and I locked horns a few times. We tangled. And yet, there was this deep affection between us. And when I would see her, she would hug me and I would hug her. And once she berated me when we were having lunch with some friends, and she said, I'm only doing this for your good because I want you to be more perfect. Does that sound familiar? Family? Anyway, when I found out she was ill, I started praying for her in the prayer circle and also in my synagogue. I'm Jewish, and I have worked with many, many Muslims over the years, and she was probably one of the people that stood out most in my mind because there were issues that would come up between us which were difficult issues. But anyway, I went to see her in the hospital unannounced. Fortunately, Zaman was there and he let me come in and see her. And she was looking wan, and I sat down next to her and I took her hand and I said, you know, Jahan, we've had our differences. And she just went like, you know, not even an issue. And I said, but I want you to know that I love you. And she says, I know, I love you too. So that was the last time I saw her. And every Saturday, every Shabbat after that, I would pray for her. I would tell the rabbi we have a special prayer service for people who are ill. And I would say her name, and I would say she's my Muslim friend and interfaith colleague. And she died, and she was interred on Friday. And Saturday, which was yesterday, I said Kaddish for her. Kaddish is the holy prayer that we say for members of our family and friends when they pass. May the name of the unnameable be blessed. And the very last line is a line that actually I think sums up what Jahan felt she was doing here on earth. Right now, I'm sure she's organizing things in heaven, making sure that everything is perfect and that people are held accountable. But the last line is, Ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Hu she'oseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom aleinu al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yeshvei tevel. May the one, may the Creator who makes peace in the heavens, make peace for all of us here on earth. That was her fondest desire, and she had a great part in working towards that. We will remember her fondly. Our condolences, and just as Reverend Dr. Gwen DeBoard said, if you want to talk, there are a lot of us here who will be willing to just listen. Thank you very much.
We're not all going to miss our supper, but all these people that want to speak. I'll try to be brief. My name is Reverend Leland Stewart. I'm the founder of Unity University World Council, and I've known Jahan for a long time and have had many experiences. I was with Stephen Fisk in the garden, this Fisk garden, where Jahan was present a number of times. I had another experience, and that is that Jahan's daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Justin, were in my acquaintance because Justin's mother stayed with me for some time, and so I got to know both of them and appreciate them. And so I've been at some of the Culver City meetings. Jahan has been involved in many things where we've crossed paths, and I appreciate her forthrightness. I didn't have big issues with her at all. But I did want to say one thing. I am familiar with the peace pledge that Jahan helped to create in the Culver City Interfaith Alliance. I would like to just offer a challenge. I think we ought to make some special effort to use that peace pledge and to get it out there where it belongs so that it can have some real influence in bringing peace to this world. Thank you very much.
hello there. My name is Radomir Luza. I'm part of Unity and Diversity. I probably knew Jahan less than, or a shorter amount of time than anybody in this room. One moment sticks out for me more than any other. I'll make this brief. It was about a year ago, and it was in this building. And by the way, this was a beautiful, beautiful service. Your speech was beautiful. Your speech was beautiful. I didn't understand any of it, but it was beautiful. I'm Catholic. I'm not Islamic. It doesn't matter to me. My mother died of cancer too. She fled a communist torn country in Czechoslovakia, and I was having real problems with that, and I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know where to turn. And I turned to Jahan just like that. It was at a Unity and Diversity meeting, and I just turned to her, and I just started talking to her in the middle of the meeting, and she really calmed me down, and she said, listen, your mother understands. She's in heaven. She knows. She understands. She'll calm you down. She knows. She's with you. She just trust her. Just trust yourself. You'll be okay. And since then, I've been calmer with that whole issue. And I just want to say thanks to her, and thanks to all of you, and thanks to Unity and Diversity, and mainly thanks to Jahan. It's been better. It's been much better that way. And I just want to thank you all. God bless you all very much. It's been a great ceremony. My eyes are dripping with tears, and it's just been wonderful. God bless you all so very much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karima Rahid. Jahan was a classmate of mine back at home at Kabul University. Of course, as a classmate, I have many wonderful memories to share with you, but there's time limitations, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a poem that another classmate of mine has written, remembering Jahan in Farsi. And his name is Muhammad Asif Nehan, and he's sent it from Sydney, Australia. Here it goes. ای دوستان چه شد که جهان از جهان رفت سروی سهی به هزار عز و شان رفت تابش ز شمس و قمر از جهان رفت آن دم که خود جهان تا پیغام رفت نوری زمین چه سان ز زمین بر سما رفت تاریک شد زمین که جهان تا جان رفت شمع ازار محفل گلرخان بود دفتر سقید مان که جان از جهان رفت رفتا که رفتنش یک باره شد چرا رفتا که رفتنش یک باره شد چرا دایم از این جهان هم سوی جنان رفت بیمار و دلفگار شدم از غمش همیش آن دم که ناگهان خبر مرگ جهان رفت همصنفی عزیز من ای دخت با وقار همصنفی عزیز من ای دخت با وقار با رفتنت فرشته الفت عیان رفت در محفل حسین و عزیزان داغدار در محفل حزین و عزیزان داغدار گویند به ناله غنچه ادب بوستان رفت مژده به حوریان بهشت داد کاتبان آن دم که نازنین جهان تا جنان رفت گریم به حال خویش و عزیزان داغدار تاریک شد جهان نهان چون جهان رفت. Thank you.
My name is Thomas Hedberg. I'm the Interfaith Chaplain for the Parliament of the World's Religions. My real claim to fame with Jahan, I was her vice president while she was the president of the Culver City Interfaith Alliance. And it was a joy to work with her. It's a Jewish word, but I love it because it really bespeaks Jahan's spirit. She had chutzpah. She had maybe what you would want to call Islamic chutzpah because she was true and authentic. I'll be super brief. I nearly lost my beloved wife about 1.5 years ago. And when I heard Jahan was sick, and I said, no, she's going to overcome this. And then when I heard it was going downhill, and Reverend Basha told me that it looks like it's the last light is going out, my heart went out to you guys. My wife was in the hospital 3 weeks, about a year and a half ago, and I just started reliving that kind of fear of loss. And I would say, Zaman, you're one of the most quiet, deeply reflective, and spiritually poetic people I've ever had the gift to know. It made me want to learn Farsi so I could understand all of Rumi and Hafez. I just want to give you one short poem by Tagore that my wife reminds me of often. It, to me, is the most fitting way to remember a person like Jahan. Death is not extinguishing the light. It is only putting out the candle because the dawn is near. I truly believe when you love someone, when you really have a friendship, a community like this, a family like this, what testimonies today, they never die. The person lives within the spirit of each and every one of us. And I truly want to kind of live in that light and help to carry on that light. The death is not extinguishing the light. It is only putting out the candle because the dawn is near. Salam alaikum.
We're just going to have one more speaker and then two more speakers, and then we will be serving dinner in the hall. Thank you.
My name is Arlene Shapiro, and I was invited to a spiritual salon by Reverend Shana Lester, and it's opened up a community in the interfaith community that's enriched me so much. And I'm so grateful to everyone here. It's when I met Jahan and met Zaman. During this time I knew her, I developed breast cancer, and I did not know that Jahan had cancer. And one day I was in the hallway of the cancer support community that's here over on Bundy and Olympic. And it was the distance between, say, here and 5 rows. And Jahan and I looked at each other. And we became sisters, very, very close sisters in a shared malady. And I felt that I wanted to share this with you, what that community is, because I wanted you to know that Jahan was contributed to in a way that she could receive. That was as big and bold as she was. And that each one of you have contributed to her in a big and bold way, as big as she was, whether she let you be that or you insisted that she accept what you had to offer her. The Cancer Support Community's mission is to ensure that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community. With little more than an idea and the passion to see it through, Harold Benjamin left his thriving career as an attorney and successful businessman to find, along with his wife, Harriet, the wellness community, now named the Cancer Support Community. They revolutionized the way we as a culture face cancer, enhancing the lives of tens of thousands of people affected by this illness and taking care to ensure that no cancer patient or family is ever charged for services. The community takes care of caretakers as well as people suffering. The Benjamins believed in powerful connection between emotions and physical well-being. Harriet, his wife, had battled breast cancer, and both she and Harold had benefited from the encouragement of family and friends. We know Jahan did. This support system aided in her recovery and became the foundation of Dr. Benjamin's patient active concept, which encourages active participation in cancer treatment, camaraderie, and community to improve the quality of life and enhance the possibility of recovery. So I wanted you to know that that community is out there for all of us, and I want to express my condolences and just profound love for your family and all of Jahan's friends. Thank you.
I'll only be about 45 minutes, so. My name is Ed Tarzi. I'm Jahan's nephew. My mom is Anissa, who is Jahan's oldest sister. Just wanted to say a few words that when we found out about this, and when I saw my uncle and my mom do it every single day for her, I've never seen such amazing people like that. My mom raised 5 kids on her own, the strongest woman in the world. For her to break down the way she did shows how much love there is within her family. So first off, on behalf of my mom, our entire family, I just want to thank all of you guys for being here. My condolences to the immediate family as well. Just tell a quick story. My girlfriend met Jahan right before Sarah's wedding, and she pulled her aside and spoke to her for 30 minutes. And I don't know what they talked about, but right after she came back to me and she said, "I really like her." And as soon as she said that, I said, "Babe, you're in the family now." I got the thumbs up. Didn't need anyone else's approval, just needed hers, because I know that would be enough. Because if there's ever anything said, they always make that phone call. And now that I've had that back and approval, I'm happy that she had the opportunity to meet her. And again, thank you everyone for coming, and condolences to the family.
And I'm done from what you talked about. My name is Nasser, and thank you all for coming and independently verifying her character for us. I felt like, you know, everybody who spoke just unanimously approved what I knew all along, what she liked. So, a joke comes to mind, which is not appropriate, but I'll tell it anyway. You know, there was a traveler traveling somewhere, and he comes upon a pole, which is something written on top of the pole in very small words. And there's a person standing next to the pole, and everybody passes by and looks at the pole and says, "What is written up there?" And the guy goes, "It says," whatever is written there, they tell him, and the guy goes by. And then Jahan comes and she says, "I want you to get me a ladder, I want to get up there, I want to read it myself, I want to verify it for myself." She never took anybody's word. She always verified. And that was Jahan. Thank you all for